there shall be signs in the sun, and in the moon, and in the stars, and upon the earth distress of nations, with perplexity, the sea and the waves roaring, men's hearts failing them for fear, and for looking after those things which are coming on the earth. For the powers of heaven shall be shaken. One man, one microphone, one mission, one message. True News, the only newscast reporting the countdown to the second coming of Jesus Christ. And now for the most powerful hour on radio, here is end-time newsman Rick Wiles.
This is True News, 1 hour of uncensored news, views, and commentary. Welcome to the program. I'm Rick Wiles. Today is Thursday, October 4, 2012. I want to give you my perspective on last night's debate between Mitt Romney and Barack Obama. Mike Snyder from the economiccollapseblog.com website will join me in several minutes to discuss what could happen now that the world is saying Barack Obama looked like a big loser last night. I actually think the danger level is higher today than it was yesterday because of Mr. Obama's embarrassingly poor performance last night. Before I bring Mike onto the program, however, I need to give you a quick update on some late-breaking developments in the Middle East. I think we'll see later this month a connection between these events, the debate and the election. Turkey and Syria appear to be heading for an all-out war today after the Turkish parliament gave the prime minister legal authority to commence military operations inside Syria. By passing the resolution authorizing the prime minister to wage war against Syria, essentially Turkey declared war today. Turkey said military action was in response to a Syrian attack that killed 5 people in a Turkish town near the southeastern border. In retaliation, the Turkish military pounded targets in Syria today with mortar fire. The Turkish government said Syria's aggressive actions threaten the country's national security and thus demand an equally aggressive response. The cross-border shelling between both nations sharply increased tensions in the Middle East and prompted NATO to convene an emergency meeting. For the record, now follow this, Turkey is a Sunni Muslim nation. Syria is also a predominantly Sunni Muslim nation, but with the exception of one cabinet minister, the Syrian government of President Assad is Shia Muslim. President Assad is a member of Alawism, an offshoot of Shia Islam. Barack Obama is a Sunni Muslim. His spiritual father is King Abdullah of Saudi Arabia, a Sunni. Iran's Mahmoud Ahmadinejad is Shia Muslim. This is important to know because there is a long-running war in the Islamic world between Sunnis and Shiite Muslims. They have to fight it out among themselves first for control of Islam before they can establish a worldwide Islamic caliphate to be ruled by their savior, the Mahdi. And I'm starting to think that the Mahdi may be none other than the Mac Daddy. That's why I'm now calling him Mahdi Mac Daddy. Therefore, we have Sunni Muslim Barack Obama working with Turkey and Saudi Arabia, both Sunni Muslim nations, to topple Syria and Iran, ruled by Shiite Muslims. So will today's declaration of war be the catalyst for a false flag event that Barack Obama needs to stay in power? I don't know, but I'm watching everything very closely. Now, news reports today that Western powers, news reports said today that Western powers quickly backed Turkey in its military confrontation with Syria. In August, London newspapers reported that NATO allies were standing by with an invasion force of over 60,000 men to enter Syria on a mission to capture, control, and destroy Syria's vast arsenal of chemical weapons such as VX nerve agents and mustard gas. On Tuesday, Russia issued a stern warning to NATO to not interfere in the Syrian crisis. Now, Russia's latest warning comes as reports say that the Russians are quickly finishing up their evacuation of their naval base in Tartus, and on the heels of confirmation that a high-ranking Russian military general who worked as an advisor to the Syrian government was indeed killed by Syrian rebels last month. Also, Iran deployed riot police at key Tehran intersections today after the Iranian currency plunged in value under pressure of economic sanctions. DEPCA files said the Iranian government evoked emergency measures today to crack down on gold dealers, with a large-scale deployment of militia forces loyal to the Shiite government. The Iranian government was also forced to limit access to the Internet as cyber hackers continued a massive disruption of Internet traffic. The bottom line is that the Iranian government is starting to crack under the pressure of Western sanctions. The currency is collapsing. Riot police are in the streets. Militiamen are rounding up gold dealers. The Internet is under strong cyber attack. And combine that with Turkey's declaration of war against Syria. And we have ripe conditions for a Middle East war. Let's take a break. Michael Snyder will join me when I return, and I'll give you my perspective on last night's debate.
Reporting the countdown to the second coming of Jesus Christ, you're listening to True News, the End Time Newscast.
This is Max McLean. How should we respond to our enemies? Listen to the Bible from Matthew 5. You have heard that it was said, love your neighbor and hate your enemy. But I tell you, love your enemies and pray for those who persecute you, that you may be sons of your Father in heaven. He causes his sun to rise on the evil and the good, and sends rain on the righteous and the unrighteous. If you love those who love you, what reward will you get? Are not even the tax collectors doing that? And if you greet only your brothers, what are you doing more than others? Do not even pagans do that? Be perfect, therefore, as your heavenly Father is perfect. From Matthew 5. Listen to the Bible. It's great for the soul.
Now you can download the Bible directly to your computer. To find out more, go to radiobible.org.
Well, welcome back to segment 2 of True News for Thursday, October 4, 2012. I want to give you my perspective on last night's debate between Governor Mitt Romney and the man of lawlessness, Barack Hussein Obama. My guest, Mike Snyder from the economiccollapseblog.com, is standing by on the telephone and will be joining this conversation in just a moment. Well, the overwhelming consensus is that Governor Mitt Romney clearly won the debate last night with Barack Obama. I was amazed to see and hear even Democratic Party strategists and spinmeisters and of course the ultra-liberal news media, they seem to be caught off guard by Mr. Romney's assertive control of the debate and Mr. Obama's stuttering, stammering, defensive response. The ultra-liberal CNN admitted that their poll of viewers revealed that a whopping 67% of the people said Mr. Romney was the clear winner. And that's the highest number ever recorded in that quadrennial poll question. The same was true at Fox News. An in-studio audience of voters gave thumbs up to Mr. Romney, including an overwhelming number of people in the studio who voted for Mr. Obama 4 years ago. They said Mr. Obama looked tired, bored, unprepared, and defensive. Mr. Romney, on the other hand, came across as a strong leader, decisive, in command of the facts, and looking presidential. I said on yesterday's program that I would be looking for signs of whether Mr. Romney is really in the fight to win or whether he's just a stand-in, somebody that's going to take a dive like a boxer who's been paid off to lose. 4 years ago, John McCain ran a horrible campaign against Barack Obama. He never scored a direct hit against an unknown senator from Illinois without a record but a suspicious past. So I was looking last night for any indication that 2012 would be a repeat of 2008. It isn't. Mr. Romney clearly is in the fight to win. So what does this mean? I think it greatly increases the likelihood there will be a false flag event inside the USA or somewhere in the world before November 6th. Mr. Obama is a self-deceived, narcissistic, delusional, psychopathic liar. He is consumed with loving himself. For the past 4 years, he has known nothing but adoring praise, bordering on idol worship. During the 2008 campaign and into his first 2 years, his followers glowingly referred to him as godlike. They called him a Messiah. There were people who fainted in his presence. Mr. Obama even joked one time that the rumor wasn't true that he was born in a manger, a statement that is blasphemous. The patriarch of the Greek Orthodox Church said in 2009 that Mr. Obama is America's Alexander the Great. The Egyptians said Obama had a physical resemblance to King Tut. Well, what happens to a self-deceived, narcissistic, delusional, psychopathic liar when the adoration ceases? How can he cope with not being adored and loved and worshipped? His ego hungers for the applause of the masses. He cannot fathom in his mind that the people would turn against him. What will he do the day after he's kicked out of the White House, when there's nobody to ooh and awe when he walks into the room? In my opinion, this is a very dangerous situation. Barack Obama is not a normal person. He is delusional. And I think he will intervene in world affairs to create circumstances that demand that he remains in power. A friend of mine was given information several weeks ago from a business friend who had a conversation with a high-ranking military officer. So it's third-hand information, but the chain of command there, it was a very high-level sources that I trust. But that military official made the remark, and again, this was about 2 weeks ago, that if we get to the middle of October and the polls are tied or Mr. Romney is in the lead, this officer said it is certain there will be a Middle Eastern war before November 6th. As I reported in the first segment today, the Turkish parliament passed a resolution today authorizing the president of Turkey to attack Syria. So the fuse is lit for a NATO-led invasion of Syria, despite the warning from Russia several days ago that NATO should not involve itself in Syria. I would not be surprised to hear Barack Obama in front of the White House press corps announcing that U.S. intelligence satellites have detected that Syria is loading chemical warfare warheads on the missiles and preparing to attack Ankara and Tel Aviv. Of course, Mr. Obama will be compelled to announce that he's commanded U.S. armed forces to take out the Syrian chemical weapons stockpile, which would mean a land invasion of Syria. And that's only one possible scenario. The false flag, however, could come from any direction. We need to be prepared and be alert. The bottom line is that I am fully persuaded that Mr. Obama will not relinquish the trappings of power and allow Mr. Romney to ascend the stairs to be inaugurated as president. I think at this point I'd like to bring Michael Snyder into the discussion. Mike is an attorney whose eyes opened up several years ago. He left the practice of law to devote his full time to warning people to prepare for trouble. He is the founder and editor of two websites, theeconomiccollapseblog.com and endoftheamericandream.com. Mike, welcome back to True News.
Oh, thank you, Rick. It's great to be on with you.
Well, Michael, what's your thoughts on the debate last night?
Well, I was just horrified because we went for an hour and a half debate about the economy, and not a single word was said about the Federal Reserve. Not a single word was said about quantitative easing. Instead they rambled on and on about education. When you look, we have plenty of educated people out there. For example, last year, 53% of all college graduates under the age of 25 were either unemployed or underemployed. So there's plenty of educated Americans out there. There's just not enough jobs. And the number one reason there's not enough jobs is because of the Federal Reserve. But not a single word was said about the Federal Reserve. So I was very, very disturbed about that.
Well, we know, Michael, that neither party is permitted to talk about the puppet master that's controlling both parties. So that is not to be. I'm not surprised that they didn't discuss the Federal Reserve. It's the 800-pound gorilla sitting in the living room that nobody wants to admit is sitting there. But in regards to Mr. Obama's very poor performance and Mr. Romney's very strong performance, do you think this changes the dynamics of the political scene in the closing weeks of this campaign? Or do you think this thing's already decided?
No, I think both of these men, both Obama and Romney, are desperate to win this election. And I believe we're moving into a very dangerous time. Like you said, war in the Middle East could erupt at any time. In fact, it may be something that Obama chooses to go through with if things feel desperate. Another possibility is a false flag inside the United States. That could happen at any time. And in fact, we could see it blamed on patriotic Americans or Christian Americans, as a possibility to get the nation to kind of turn, against them if Obama gets desperate. Or another possibility that I'm extremely concerned about is I believe that we could be looking at the possibility of election fraud with this election. I'm hearing this from a lot of sources. I just want your listeners to put that away in the back of their mind. And not only on Obama's side, but also look for it on both sides, potentially, election fraud in this election. And then if we get down to election night and it's extremely tight and it looks like, there could be a court challenge, I would expect potentially either side to take the election results to court, kind of like what we saw with Bush and Gore back in 2000. Because Obama, he's already recruited an army of lawyers, is what is being called in the media. They're ready to challenge anything that they can to keep Obama in power. So there's so many things which could, in the next couple months, which could potentially trigger some really bad things in this country, and which in turn could trigger another financial crisis like we saw back in 2008.
Absolutely. And the danger period is not just between now and November 6th, but then there is November 7th to January 20th when the presidential inauguration takes place. So regardless of what happens in the election, Mr. Romney could win the election, but that doesn't mean Mr. Obama is going to leave.
Oh, you're absolutely correct. I believe that Obama is going to examine all of his options to stay because, like you said, he believes that it's all about him. And these two men, and you could see it in the debate last night, they were telling the American people what they wanted to hear. They were talking about all the things they wanted to give them and all these new things that they wanted to do, which would cost money, but then somehow magically they were also saying, and we're going to reduce the debt as well, which we've seen in the politicians in the past. When they get into the White House, they never reduce the debt anyway. It always keeps going up. So, but they're telling the American people the same thing. Hey, we're going to do all these great things for you, which is going to cost all this money, plus we're going to reduce the deficit somehow. Of course, that's a bunch of lies, but that's what the American people want to hear, and they're telling them what their itching ears want to hear.
Michael, I want to go on record, and I've said this before, but I want to state it again on record, that we have to be prepared that Barack Obama, if he loses the election, will resort to the same tactics that his Kenyan cousin, Raila Odinga, used in 2007 when he lost the presidential election in Kenya. And what they did is that they turned the streets to blood. They set the nation on fire. They rampaged, they looted,